Hey, fifth graders, today we're going to be talking about your informational checklist. So your informational checklist is just like your narrative checklist, actually. So it's an opportunity for you to work with a partner to look through all the expectations, all the things that we've learned in this unit to see if you have mastered those items. So you will need to pick up a sheet that looks like this. Actually, you're going to need two of them because you are to do this with two partners at least. So you're going to get a sheet like this. You're going to read through first the checklist with your partner. So you're going to read through each of the items that we're looking for. Then you're going to take a moment to read through your own draft and correct any errors you see before your partner has an opportunity to read it. So it gives you just one last chance to go, oh, I did forget this, or oh, I need to remember that. So just to make sure that you're very happy with your draft before someone else gets to read it, and now you're ready to get to work. So just like last time, you are kind of doing a read aloud test. Reading your essay out loud is going to help you find those mistakes where you skipped a word or you said something twice. Things like that happen all the time. And so the way to find that is to read your text out loud. So you're going to read slowly and carefully and all the words that are actually on the page. I know that sounds kind of funny, but what ends up happening when you've written the text is your mind will think about the words you meant to put there, and you'll say those words. So make sure you're reading exactly the words that are written, not necessarily the words you meant to write. You're going to make sure you're reading through without stopping so that the first time through your partner is hearing the whole thing, getting the whole gist of it, so that way when you look at it again and you slow down and you look for each item on the checklist, they know what is in the entire essay. So they're not like, yes, but what about, when hurricanes happen and this happened, they'll have questions because they haven't read the whole thing. So it's going to be a lot better if you read the whole thing the first time, then you slow down on each item and look for each exact item. The writer of the draft definitely should be listening or reading it to them, and then fill out the checklist while the author starts to make any changes. So you're going to be filling out that checklist. If you're sitting next to your partner and your partner goes, oh, I'm going to go ahead and add those words I missed, and they're putting those in, you're going to be filling out your checklist for them at that time. And make sure to be honest, but be kind. So it's really important to help someone by being honest, making sure that you're saying, I did notice that you only had 2 topics here, or I did see that you didn't explain your quotes. Remember that we're supposed to explain the quotes, and when, like on several of these quotes, you just went from one quote to the next quote to the next quote. You need to slow down and explain why that quote's important. You got to explain that quote. Otherwise, it's so much quotes that we don't even see your ideas and thinking. So that's really important too. One thing that I want to make sure I talk about, last time when we did this assignment, I saw a few people kind of even taking over their partner's computer and going, well, this is what I mean, and helping them write their essay. Well, actually, it was their narrative essay. And I was like, no, because then you're giving them the answer. It's one thing to tell someone, hey, you need to explain your quotes here, and even giving them a helpful hint. This quote's really talking about how fast the tornado's winds are. So your explanation should say something about how fast those winds are. And then encourage them to write one, maybe even to go, oh yeah, that looks great. I love what you did there. That's very different than saying, here, this is how you should explain it. Tornadoes, winds spin so fast, just going ahead and getting in there and doing it for them. Right? So that's not being helpful because you're not going to be there when they take the iLearn. You're not going to be there when they have to do ClearSight. You're not going to be there in middle school and high school when you have to write lots of essays like this. And lastly, don't get offended. Everyone is going to have something to fix. Even I make mistakes, remember, at least 3 a day. So it's important that don't get offended. Just go with the flow. They're there to help you, and make sure then you switch to the next partner, okay? So now it's your turn to make sure that they did a high quality job. And finally, not sure why it's not switching to this one, but here we go. you're going to look at this rubric. Your rubric is going to look like this. It's very similar to the narrative writing checklist, except this time it says information writing checklist. So you're looking for a few different things. Okay. I use different kinds of information to teach about a subject. Sometimes I included little essays or stories or how-to sections. So the stories would be like a narrative beginning. And I think when it's saying these things, you're talking about having those topics. I wrote an introduction that helped readers get interested and understand the subject. I let the readers know that the subtopics I would be developing later. This means that it has the thesis, right? You have to be able to see the thesis, and the thesis, remember, happens at the end of that first paragraph. So you're going to want to look at that there. If you can easily see their thesis and that they had a hook, you're going to give them a yes, right? If they had they used information, but they included different types of writing, like they used maybe a narrative beginning or they used the hooks. This is like an overall. Did they do well overall? Does it really seem good? That's a yes. And don't forget the point system, 1, 2, and 3. That's going to come into play when we do your mastery check. Transitions. This was an optional lesson this time. So if you didn't have many transitions, this is an opportunity for you to say, not yet. If they didn't do that lesson and they don't have many transitions, you're going to say not yet. And this is an opportunity for them to grow. Maybe you did that lesson and you can help them. Maybe you can read through this section and they'll give you some ideas. An ending, that they do have that conclusion, that they've restated the main points in it. And that you have something final and thoughtful, either a question or a narrative, that opposite of the hook right at the end, that you have that, right? And that it's organized. I organize my writing into sequence of separate sections. I may have used headings or subheadings, so you can use headings or subheadings for the sections. So if you haven't done that yet, you can do that. You can add subheadings and headings. So my title might say all about tornadoes, but my first section would be how does a tornado form, or tornado formation. Second section might be about how dangerous tornadoes are. So tornadoes and danger, or dangerous tornadoes. And then the last one, how to be safe during a tornado. So those section headings can really help in nonfiction writing. I wrote each section according to an organized plan and shaped partly by the genre of the selection, so that it really does sound like information. The genre is that this is an informational writing. So even though you might have that little bit of a narrative beginning, your whole essay doesn't sound like a narrative. It shouldn't. This is information, right? Elaboration. This is a big word. Elaboration is you're explaining. Okay? So did they explain? So I explained different aspects of the subject. I included a variety of information such as examples, details, dates, and quotes. So they used quotes, but they didn't just use quotes. They explained it. They used different kinds of information, and they didn't just use one source. I used trusted sources and gave credit where appropriate. That means they said, according to Mystery Dog, according to Wikipedia, wherever they got their information, they gave it credit where they did. I worked to make my information understandable to the readers. To do this, I may have referred to earlier parts of my text, summarized background information. I let readers know when I was discussing facts and when I was offering my own thinking. That is an advanced thing we really didn't work so much on this time, so many of you are going to have a not yet for that, and that is okay. That's something that we're working towards. I made deliberate word choices to have an effect on my readers. I use use a vocabulary of experts and explain the key terms. So that means that when you used words that would be unfamiliar to a reader, you explained it when you explained your quote, okay? I worked to include exact phrase, comparison, or image to explain information to concepts. Again, that's explaining. Did you explain it well? I not only made choices about which details and facts to include, but I also made choices about how to convey my information so that it would make sense to my reader. I blended storytelling, summary, and other genres I needed, and used text features. So text features being those subtitles, right? I used consistent, inviting, and teaching tone and varied my sentences to help readers take and understand the information so that it sounds like a personal narrative. So 1, 2, and 3 there. And my last slide, there's a back side to this, guys. Oops. There's a back side of this. Here it is. And you'll want to make sure that you've marked that they did spell their words correctly, that they use that spell check, and that they use the punctuation correctly. And that's going to be most important when they're using their quotes, that they did according to, comma, quotation marks, whatever the text said, period, then the end of the quotation marks, that they did all those things correctly. All right, good luck on your information writing checklist. I hope you look forward to working with groups, and that this really, working with a partner is very helpful.